The sound of heavy doors opening echoed through the dark chamber. A young human soldier, Daniel, slowly opened his eyes. His head pounded, his throat was dry, and the cold air smelled of strange flowers mixed with iron. He tried to move, but chains were wrapped tightly around his wrists. The ground beneath him was made of polished stone, glowing faintly with alien symbols. Daniel had no idea where he was. The last thing he remembered was a battlefield, smoke, and the bright flash of an alien weapon. Now he found himself inside a palace that looked like it had been built by giants. The walls were covered with golden carvings of creatures he had never seen before, and tall torches burned with blue fire. Footsteps echoed. Slowly, alien guards entered the chamber. They were tall, almost twice his size, wearing black armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Their faces were hidden behind masks shaped like beasts. Each one carried a spear that pulsed with glowing energy. They surrounded Daniel without saying a word. At the far end of the hall, a throne stood high above the floor. Upon it sat a woman unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. She was tall and regal, her skin a pale silver that reflected the torchlight. A crown of dark crystal rested on her head, and her eyes glowed faintly like emerald fire. She looked powerful, but her expression carried something else, a sadness hidden beneath layers of pride. The guards forced Daniel to his knees. "You stand before Her Majesty, Queen Seraphina of the Zyrath," one of the guards announced, his voice deep and metallic. "You are the last human alive from the battlefield. Your fate has been decided." Daniel struggled against his chains. "What do you want from me? Why am I here?" His voice echoed in the vast chamber, but no one answered him directly. The queen finally rose from her throne. Her long gown shimmered like flowing starlight as she walked down the steps. The entire hall grew silent. Even the guards bowed their heads as she approached. Her voice was calm but carried unshakable authority. "Human, your life belongs to me now. You have only two choices. You will marry me, or you will die." Daniel's heart froze. For a moment he thought he had misheard her. Marry her? This towering alien queen he had never seen before? The idea sounded like some cruel joke. "Marry you?" Daniel muttered in disbelief. "Why would you want that?" Her green eyes narrowed and the room grew colder. "It is not a matter of desire. It is a matter of prophecy. My people believe that only through a union with a human will my bloodline survive. Without it, my throne will fall and my kingdom will be lost to endless war." The words hit him like a blade. Daniel could hardly believe it. He was a soldier, a nobody, not a king. And yet, here he was, facing an ultimatum that would decide his life. The guards raised their spears closer to him, glowing tips aimed at his chest. The threat was clear. Refusal meant instant death. Daniel's voice shook, but he forced himself to speak. "So those are my choices? Be your husband or be killed." The queen's gaze softened slightly, though her words remained firm. "Yes, you must marry with me or you will not leave this palace alive." Daniel's mind raced. He thought about his comrades, about Earth, about everything he was losing by being trapped here. His body trembled with anger. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be dragged into your palace like some prisoner." The queen studied him carefully. For a brief second, Daniel thought he saw sorrow in her eyes, as if she herself hated what she was forced to do. But before he could say more, the guards pulled him to his feet and dragged him toward the grand hall. There he saw hundreds of alien nobles seated in curved rows, their strange eyes all fixed on him. The hall was vast, with towering pillars shaped like dragons and ceilings painted with stars. He felt like a trapped animal inside an arena. The queen raised her hand and the hall fell silent. "This human will marry me and our bond will seal the future of our people. If he refuses, his blood will mark the stones of this palace tonight." The nobles erupted in shouts, some cheering, others snarling in rage at the idea of a human sitting beside their queen. The sound thundered through the chamber, shaking Daniel to his core. He clenched his fists. Fear gripped him, but so did anger. Was he really going to be forced into this? Could he find a way out? Or was this truly his end? The queen's eyes locked with his once more. "Decide quickly, human. Your time runs short." And with those words, the fate of Daniel's life hung in the balance, marriage or death with no road in between. Daniel's chains were unlocked, but his freedom was only an illusion. Two guards walked at his sides, their spears glowing faintly with blue fire, making sure he did not try to run. He was led through the vast corridors of the alien palace, each one decorated with strange paintings of battles, strange beasts, and a tall figure that looked exactly like the queen. The palace was alive with whispers. Alien nobles and servants stopped whatever they were doing as Daniel passed. Their tall frames leaned closer, their shining eyes full of curiosity and disgust. He could hear their voices in low tones. A human? The prophecy cannot be true. He is too small, too weak. Daniel kept his head down, but inside his chest his heart hammered. He felt like prey walking into the lion's den. Finally, the guards pushed him into a smaller chamber. Unlike the throne room, this place was quieter, softer. Golden curtains hung on the walls, and the floor was made of smooth black glass. A large balcony opened to a view of the alien city. Towers rose like blades into the sky, glowing with green lights. Far beyond, Daniel saw two suns dipping low, painting the horizon in red and silver. The queen stood at the balcony, her long gown rippling in the wind. Her crown was gone now, and her silver hair blew gently against her pale face. Without the crown, she looked less like a goddess and more like a woman carrying a heavy weight. Daniel hesitated, but finally spoke. "Why me? There are billions of humans out there. Why drag me here?" The queen did not turn around at first. Her voice was calm, but softer than before. "Because you were the one who survived. My enemies believe survival is a sign. They call you the chosen one of the prophecy." Daniel frowned. "Prophecy? What prophecy?" Now she turned, her emerald eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "It was written thousands of years ago. It says that when the Zyrath throne weakens, when war surrounds our borders, and when the queen is without an heir, a human will appear. That human will either bind the queen to survival or bring her kingdom to ruin." Her words cut deep into Daniel's mind. He almost laughed, but fear stopped him. "That's insane. I'm just a soldier. I'm not a savior. I don't even believe in your prophecy." The queen stepped closer, her presence powerful and intimidating. "Belief does not matter. What matters is what my people see. They are ready to follow the prophecy, and if you refuse, they will see it as betrayal. The council will not allow you to live." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So you admit this isn't really about me. It's about keeping your throne safe." For a brief moment, her eyes lowered. She looked almost human, filled with guilt. "Yes, without an heir, I will be replaced, and my enemies will tear this kingdom apart. They want me gone. You are my only shield against them." Her honesty surprised him. Daniel had expected lies, but instead he heard desperation. He shook his head slowly. "And if I refuse to marry you?" The queen's voice hardened again. "Then they will execute you in the courtyard tomorrow at dawn." The words echoed in his head like a death sentence. Daniel stepped back, pacing across the glass floor. He looked out the balcony again, the alien city stretching far and endless. Flying machines passed between towers and strange lights danced in the air. Everything felt unreal. He wasn't just far from Earth. He was trapped in a world where his life meant nothing but a line in some prophecy. He clenched his fists. "I don't want to die, but I won't just be forced into this either." The queen tilted her head, her eyes narrowing as if studying his resolve. "You are stronger than you look, human. Perhaps that is why fate brought you here." Before Daniel could answer, the chamber doors burst open. A group of alien nobles stormed inside, their tall frames casting shadows across the floor. One of them, a general in red armor, pointed at Daniel. "This is madness." The general roared. "Our queen cannot marry a creature from another world. The prophecy is a trick, and this human is a weakness." The queen's voice cracked like a whip. "Silence, General Torvak. The council will hear your words tomorrow. For now, the human stays alive." The general's eyes burned with rage. He glared at Daniel as though he were nothing but dirt. "Then let him prove himself. If he is truly the human of prophecy, let him survive the trial of combat." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Trial? What trial?" The general smirked. "The arena. No outsider survives it." The queen's expression darkened, but she did not argue. Instead, she looked at Daniel with a strange sadness. "Tomorrow you will face the trial. If you live, the prophecy will be confirmed. If you die—" Her words trailed off. Daniel understood. If he refused marriage, he would die. If he agreed, he would be hated. And now even his survival would be tested in an arena designed to kill him. As the nobles stormed out, the chamber fell into silence again. Daniel's heart pounded harder than ever. The queen finally whispered almost to herself, "Perhaps fate is cruel. Or perhaps it has given us both one last chance. Daniel stared at her, torn between anger, fear, and something else he could not name. One thing was certain, his nightmare was far from over. The night passed slowly for Daniel. He was given a chamber inside the palace, but it felt more like a prison cell. The bed was carved from smooth black stone, the walls glowed faintly with alien symbols, and 2 guards stood outside the door, their spears humming with energy. Every time Daniel tried to rest, his mind dragged him back to the Queen's words, "You will marry me, or you will die." And now there was something worse, the arena, a trial of combat he knew nothing about. Daniel sat at the edge of the bed, gripping his hands tightly. He had fought in human wars, but this was different. He didn't even know the rules. Would he be fighting soldiers? Beasts? Machines? The unknown weighed heavily on him like a storm waiting to break. At dawn, the doors opened. A guard entered holding a tray of food, strange purple fruit, a slice of glowing bread, and a glass of silver liquid. Daniel stared at it but didn't touch. "Eat," the guard ordered in a cold voice. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Why, so I can have strength to die faster in your arena?" The guard gave no reply, only set the tray down and left. Daniel pushed the food aside. He wasn't hungry. He was angry. Soon after, another visitor arrived. The Queen herself. Without her crown, she looked less like a ruler and more like someone carrying a heavy burden. Her emerald eyes softened when she saw Daniel's stubborn expression. "You didn't eat," she said quietly. Daniel stood up, his fists clenched. "I'm not your pet. I'm not here to perform for your people. I didn't ask for any of this." Her voice was calm but firm. "Neither did I, human. Yet here we are." Daniel's anger boiled over. "Why don't you tell your people the truth? That prophecy is just a story. Why force me into your marriage?" The Queen stepped closer, her silver hair catching the light. "Because if I don't, they will tear me from the throne and the kingdom will collapse into civil war. Millions will die," Daniel glared at her. "So you're saving your people by destroying my freedom?" For a moment, her expression softened again. "If I had a choice, Daniel, I would not ask this of you. But the council will not listen. They already plan your death. The arena is only their excuse." Daniel turned away, pacing the room. His chest heaved with frustration. "Then let me die. I won't marry someone just because your people believe in fairy tales." The Queen's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you want to die? Alone, forgotten?" Her words struck him harder than he expected. He thought of Earth, of his comrades, of the life that had been stolen from him. He didn't want to die, not here. Not like this. The silence broke when the guards entered again. "It is time," one announced. Chains were placed on Daniel's wrists once more, though looser than before. He was led through twisting hallways until the sound of roaring voices grew louder and louder. The ground shook beneath his feet. Finally, the gates opened and he was shoved into blinding light. Daniel stumbled forward and froze. He stood inside a colossal arena. The walls stretched high into the sky, packed with thousands of alien spectators, their glowing eyes all focused on him, hungry for blood. The floor of the arena was made of red sand, stained darker in places where battles had ended. Above him, on a golden balcony, the Queen sat on her throne. Around her, the council members whispered and smirked, eager for the human's death. A loud horn echoed across the arena. A deep voice boomed, announcing the trial. The human will face the test of strength. If he survives, he will prove the prophecy. If he dies, his blood will wash away this foolish tale. The gates across the arena opened. From the shadows emerged a beast unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. It was massive, with 6 legs, claws like swords, and a mouth full of jagged teeth that dripped with green liquid. Its armored body shimmered under the suns, and its roar shook the walls. Daniel's chest tightened. He had no weapons, no armor, just his hands and his will to live. The beast charged, its claws tearing through the sand. Daniel barely rolled aside in time, the ground exploding where he had stood. The crowd roared, their voices a mix of excitement and bloodlust. Daniel scrambled to his feet, scanning the arena. He couldn't fight the monster with strength. It was too large, too powerful, but maybe, just maybe, he could outthink it. When the beast lunged again, Daniel dodged, letting it smash its claws into one of the stone pillars that lined the arena. The pillar cracked, sending rubble flying. The creature howled in pain as dust clouded its face. The crowd gasped. A human had wounded the beast, not with weapons, but with cunning. Daniel's heart pounded. Fear still gripped him, but so did determination. He refused to give the council the satisfaction of watching him die like prey. He shouted, his voice echoing across the arena, "I won't be your sacrifice." The beast roared again, charging for a final strike. Daniel ran toward the broken pillar, his mind racing. If he could use the beast's strength against it, maybe, just maybe, he could survive this nightmare. The queen leaned forward on her throne, her green eyes locked on the human below. Her lips parted in a whisper that only she could hear. "Prove them wrong, Daniel. Prove them all wrong." And as the crowd's roar shook the arena, the deadly game of survival began. The beast roared, a sound so loud it shook the very walls of the arena. Its 6 legs dug deep into the red sand, its claws gleaming like sharpened blades. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, his heart pounding so hard he could hear nothing else. Thousands of alien eyes were watching, waiting for him to die. The creature charged. Sand flew everywhere, and Daniel dove aside just in time. The monster's claws smashed into the ground, leaving a crater where he had stood. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing like thunder. Daniel scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his wits. His mind raced. If I fight it head on, I'll die. If I run, I'll die. I have to outthink it. He looked at the broken pillar nearby, the same one the beast had cracked earlier. Its heavy stone leaned dangerously. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Maybe he could use it. The monster roared again, spit flying from its fanged mouth. Its glowing eyes locked on him, and with terrifying speed it lunged forward. Daniel sprinted toward the leaning pillar, his legs burning with effort. The ground shook as the beast chased him. At the last moment, Daniel dodged to the side. The creature's massive body slammed into the weakened stone. The pillar cracked louder this time, pieces tumbling down. The beast shrieked as dust filled the air. The crowd gasped. A human, small and fragile compared to their monsters, had wounded it again. Daniel coughed through the dust, sweat dripping down his face. He forced himself to stay calm. "Think, Daniel, think," he muttered under his breath. The beast thrashed, its tail whipping through the air and striking the sand with explosive force. Daniel barely avoided the strike, but the shockwave sent him tumbling across the arena floor. Pain shot through his ribs. He groaned, pushing himself up. He couldn't take many more hits like that. Above, Queen Seraphina watched with sharp, unreadable eyes. Her lips pressed together tightly, her hands gripping the arms of her throne. Around her, alien nobles whispered in anger and disbelief. "This human should already be dead," one sneered. "The prophecy blinds her," another hissed. "He will not last," the general in red armor growled. But the queen's gaze never left Daniel. She whispered softly to herself, "Fight, human. Show them why you survived." The beast roared again, charging for the kill. Daniel's legs screamed as he ran, weaving between the arena's broken pillars. The monster smashed through them one after another, sending stone flying. Each time Daniel dodged, his movements grew slower, his body heavier. Finally, his back hit a wall. The crowd roared, sensing the end. The beast lowered its head, saliva dripping from its teeth. Its muscles tensed for the final strike. Daniel's chest heaved. His vision blurred with sweat and blood. But in that desperate moment, his soldier's instincts returned. He noticed something. When the beast moved, its right foreleg dragged slightly, slower than the others. That was its weakness. He had one chance. The beast lunged, its mouth opening wide enough to swallow him whole. Daniel rolled under its head, grabbing a broken shard of stone from the ground. As the beast stumbled past, he drove the shard deep into the weak leg joint. The creature screamed. Green blood sprang across the sand. It staggered, its massive body wobbling. The crowd gasped again, their shock louder than their cheers. Daniel forced himself up, breathing ragged. He backed away as the beast turned, limping now, fury in its glowing eyes. It swung its tail wildly but missed. Daniel's mind raced. "It's hurt. I can finish this, if I survive one more strike." The beast roared, gathering all its strength for a final charge. The ground quaked as it barreled toward him, blood spraying from its wound. Daniel ran, every muscle screaming, heading straight for the broken pillar. At the last second, he dove out of the way. The monster slammed into the pillar with full force. The cracked stone gave way completely, collapsing with a thunderous crash. Huge slabs fell onto the creature, crushing its head and chest. The ground shook violently, and then silence. Dust filled the air. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, the roar of the crowd began. Not cheers for the beast, but shouts of disbelief. The human killed it. Impossible! The prophecy, it might be true. Daniel lay in the sand, chest heaving, body trembling. He had no strength left, but he was alive. Against all odds, he had survived. High above, the queen rose to her feet. Her emerald eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time her voice carried something almost like pride. "Behold," she called out, her voice echoing through the arena. "The human lives. The prophecy stands." The nobles erupted into chaos, some screaming in rage, others whispering in fear. The general in red armor slammed his fist against the balcony rail. "This proves nothing. He is still weak. He cannot be our king." But the people below, the thousands in the crowd, were already chanting. They shouted Daniel's name, a sound that shook the arena as much as the monster had. Daniel, still on the ground, forced himself to sit up. He looked around, dazed, covered in blood and dust. He had no idea what his victory meant. He only knew one thing: he was still alive. And sometimes survival was the strongest answer of all. The queen's gaze met his, her expression unreadable. For a brief second he saw it, hope. But in the shadows of the council, betrayal was already taking root. The arena was silent now. The beast's body lay crushed under broken stone, its green blood staining the red sand. Daniel sat on his knees, his chest heaving, every muscle aching as though fire burned through his veins. The crowd's chant of his name still echoed in the distance, but to him it sounded far away, almost like a dream. Guards rushed down not to finish him, but to escort him back to the palace. The nobles still argued, their voices sharp like knives. Some shouted that the prophecy was true. Others demanded his execution. But no one dared move against him immediately, not after what thousands had just witnessed. Daniel was led through torchlit corridors once again. His body screamed with every step, but his mind was sharper than ever. He had survived. He had proved them wrong. Yet his future was still uncertain. That night the queen herself came to his chamber. She entered without guards, her long gown brushing softly against the floor. For the first time, Daniel noticed how tired she looked. The crown was gone again, her silver hair falling loose across her shoulders. She did not look like a ruler now. She looked like a woman carrying the weight of an entire kingdom. Daniel sat on the stone bed, his chest wrapped in bandages. His eyes narrowed. "So? Did I pass your little test? Or are they planning another one?" The queen's gaze softened. "You proved yourself today. No human in history has survived the trial of beasts. My people will not be able to ignore this." Daniel leaned forward, anger in his voice. "You dragged me into this. You put me in that arena to prove your prophecy. You wanted me to live, so your throne could live too." She stood in silence for a moment, then slowly walked closer. "You are right," she whispered. "At first I only wanted survival, for myself, for my people. But there is more you must know," Daniel frowned. "More?" The queen sat across from him, her green eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "I was born to rule, but the throne is cursed. Every queen of Zyrith must give birth to an heir, or the bloodline breaks. Without an heir, the council will strip me of my crown. They will divide the kingdom, and civil war will destroy everything my ancestors built." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "I tried. For years I tried. But none of my people could give me a child. My body rejected them as if nature itself turned against me. That is why the prophecy lives. It says that only with a human will the queen's bloodline continue." Daniel froze, her words sinking in like cold water. He had expected politics, lies, manipulation. Instead, he saw something raw in her eyes. Pain, fear, loneliness. He shook his head slowly. "So this isn't about love. This isn't about choice. It's about survival." Her lips curved into a sad smile. "Yes, I need you. Not because I wish it, but because fate demands it. I am a queen trapped by prophecy, just as you are a soldier trapped by war." For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken truths. Daniel finally broke it. "What happens if I say no?" Her eyes lowered. "Then they will kill you, and I will lose everything." Her voice cracked on the last word. She quickly turned away as though ashamed to show weakness before him. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time, he saw her not as a cold ruler, but as a woman burdened by duty. She had power, yes, but she was still trapped. By her people, by prophecy, by her own bloodline. He sighed, leaning back against the wall. And if I say yes? If I marry you? The queen looked back at him, her expression unreadable. Then you will live. You will stand beside me as king. My enemies will bow and peace will hold. But it will not be easy. Many will hate you. Many will try to kill you. Your life will never belong to you again. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. So my choices are death, or a life chained to a throne I don't want. Her eyes softened once more. Sometimes, Daniel, life is not about what we want. It is about what we can protect. The word stung. He thought of Earth, of his comrades, of the lives he had once sworn to protect. Wasn't that why he fought in the first place? To keep others safe, even at the cost of himself? He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a reflection of his own burden. Two prisoners of fate, caught in chains they did not choose. Before Daniel could speak again, the chamber doors burst open. General Torvak stormed in, his red armor glowing in the firelight. His eyes burned with fury. This farce must end, the general bellowed. The council will never accept this human as king. He must die, prophecy or not. The queen rose to her full height, her voice sharp as a blade. Leave us, Torvak. You will not touch him, the general sneered. Then you leave me no choice. If the council will not act, I will. Guards rushed in, weapons raised. The room filled with tension as Torvak's hand hovered over his blade. Daniel's pulse quickened. He could see it. The betrayal had begun. The queen's emerald eyes blazed. Stand down or I will end you myself. For a moment no one moved. The air was thick with danger. Then slowly Torvak lowered his hand. His voice dripped with venom. This is not over. The human's death is only delayed. He turned and stormed out, the guards following. The queen stood silently, her shoulders trembling, though she forced her face to remain calm. Daniel stared at her, his mind spinning. She had just risked her throne to protect him. For the first time, he whispered softly, almost against his will, "Why save me?" She turned to him, her eyes glowing in the dark. "Because you may be my only chance at freedom. And perhaps, Daniel, you are more than prophecy." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. And in that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was standing on the edge of destiny. The palace grew restless after Daniel's victory in the arena. Whispers spread through the golden halls, carried on every breath. Some nobles called him the savior of prophecy. Others spat his name like poison. But behind the whispers, darker plans were already moving. General Torvak's eyes burned with fury that night. He had sworn that the human would not live to see the crown. And in the shadows of the council chamber, he gathered loyalists, nobles, guards, and assassins who feared what Daniel's survival meant for their power. "This ends tonight," Torvak growled. "The queen has been blinded by prophecy. If we wait longer, the human will become king and our people will kneel to weakness. Better to spill his blood now and claim the throne ourselves." The conspirators nodded, their sharp teeth flashing in the dim light. Daniel knew none of this as he walked the palace corridors with two guards at his side. His body still ached from the arena, but his mind was sharper now. Every glance, every whisper he noticed carried hidden meaning. He felt eyes following him, waiting for him to slip. When he reached his chamber, the queen was already there, standing near the balcony. The twin moons cast silver light across her gown, making her look both ethereal and weary. "They will not stop, Daniel," she said without turning. "Torvak and his allies will try again and again. The council fears change more than they fear war." Daniel crossed his arms. "So what do you expect me to do? Fight your whole kingdom by myself?" Her eyes met his, steady and serious. "I expect you to survive. And if you stay alive long enough, perhaps the prophecy will force them to kneel." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "That's not a plan. That's gambling with my life." Before the queen could reply, the sound of steel clashing echoed outside the chamber. Shouts followed, loud and sharp. Both Daniel and the queen froze. The door burst open. A guard stumbled in, green blood running down his chest. "Assassins!" he gasped before collapsing. Daniel barely had time to react. Black-clad figures stormed into the room, their blades glowing faintly in the moonlight. They moved fast, faster than any human could. Their eyes shone with hatred. "Kill the human! Kill them both if you must!" One snarled. The queen raised her hand. Emerald energy crackled from her palm, striking the nearest assassin and hurling him against the wall. But more poured in, surrounding them. Daniel grabbed the fallen guard's spear. It was heavy, strange in design, but it was better than nothing. He spun it clumsily. blocking the first strike aimed at his chest. The force rattled his arms, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Another assassin lunged at him. Daniel thrust the spear, piercing the attacker's shoulder. The alien shrieked, collapsing to the floor. Beside him, the queen fought with elegance and power, her hands glowing with raw energy. Bolts of green fire flew from her palms, striking assassins down one by one. But for each she defeated, more appeared, climbing through windows, breaking through doors. Daniel's chest heaved as sweat and blood mixed on his skin. He blocked another strike, countered with a desperate swing, and barely avoided a blade aimed for his throat. His soldier's instincts returned, sharper than ever. "Too many," he shouted over the chaos. The queen gritted her teeth. "Then we cut our way out." They fought side by side, pushing toward the corridor. Daniel's spear cracked against helmets and armor, while the queen's energy blasts lit the dark halls like lightning. As they ran, they passed fallen palace guards, loyal soldiers slain by the traitors. The halls that once glowed with golden light now echoed with screams and steel. At the grand staircase, Torvak himself appeared, his red armor gleaming, his massive blade dripping with fresh blood. His eyes locked on Daniel with pure hatred. "You should have died in the arena," Torvak roared. "Tonight the prophecy dies with you." He charged, his strength overwhelming. Daniel raised his spear, but the general's strike nearly broke it in two. The shock sent Daniel stumbling back. The queen stepped forward, her hands glowing bright. "Enough, Torvak." "This is treason," Torvak sneered. "No, this is salvation." He swung his blade again. The queen blocked with a shield of light, but the impact shattered stone around them. The force threw Daniel to the floor. Gasping, Daniel forced himself up. He grabbed a fallen dagger from the ground and rushed forward. He wasn't strong enough to face Torvak head-on, but maybe he could distract him. He slashed at the general's leg. The blade barely pierced the armor, but it was enough to stagger him for a second. The queen seized the chance, blasting Torvak with a wave of emerald fire. The general roared as he was thrown back against a pillar, cracks spreading through the stone. But even wounded, he laughed. "This isn't over. Even if you kill me, others will rise. The council will never accept him." Before he could strike again, loyal guards finally rushed in, driving back the remaining assassins. The chamber shook with chaos as blades clashed and traitors fell. Torvak, bleeding and enraged, was dragged away by his own men, shouting curses. Silence finally returned. The floor was littered with bodies, the air heavy with smoke and blood. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest burning, every muscle trembling. The queen stood tall, though her gown was torn and her face pale. She turned to him, her voice steady despite the storm. "You saved me tonight, Daniel." Daniel laughed weakly, shaking his head. "No, we saved each other." Their eyes met. For a long moment there was no throne, no prophecy, no chains, only two survivors bound by battle. But deep inside, Daniel knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The court would never stop. The prophecy had saved him once, but next time fate might not be so kind. The next morning, the palace was silent. The golden halls that once rang with laughter and music now smelled of smoke and blood. Servants cleaned the marble floors, washing away signs of the night's attack. But whispers still filled the air. Everyone knew what had happened. Everyone knew the court was divided. Daniel sat in his chamber, his body covered in bandages, his mind restless. He replayed the events of the arena, the assassins, Torvak's furious eyes. He had survived monsters, blades, and betrayal. But now a different battle waited, one that no weapon could fight. He had to decide. Would he marry the queen and live under chains of duty? Or refuse and die before sunset? At noon, the great council assembled in the throne room. The nobles filled the curved rows, their faces sharp with anger, fear, or curiosity. The tall pillars cast long shadows as the double suns poured light through stained glass, bathing the hall in crimson and gold. At the center, the queen sat on her throne, wearing her crown once more. Her face was calm, but Daniel noticed the faint tremble of her hands resting on the golden arms. She had faced assassins last night. Now she would face her people. Daniel was brought forward by guards. This time his wrists were unchained. The entire hall held its breath as he stood before the throne. Thousands of alien eyes burned into him. General Torvak, bandaged but alive, stood among the nobles. His voice cut the silence. "The human should not be here. He is a curse, not a prophecy. If he stays, our kingdom will burn." Others shouted in agreement. Some pounded their fists against the benches. The queen raised her hand and silence fell. Her emerald eyes glowed as she spoke. He fought in the arena and survived. He faced assassins in my halls and still stands alive. Tell me then, if this is not the human of prophecy, who is? Her words echoed strong and sharp, yet the room still buzzed with anger. Finally, one of the council elders stood, his voice deep and stern. Prophecy or not, the choice must be his. Let the human decide his fate before us all. Marriage or death. The hall grew still. All eyes turned to Daniel. His heart thundered. He looked at the queen, at Seraphina. For the first time, he saw not just a ruler, but a woman who had risked her life to protect him. A woman cursed by her bloodline, chained by duty just like he was chained by survival. He thought of Earth, of his comrades, of the life that was stolen from him. He could never go back. If he chose death, he would be forgotten. If he chose marriage, he would live, but not for himself. His voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as he spoke. You brought me here against my will. You forced me into battles I never asked for. I should hate you all for it. And maybe I do. Gasps filled the hall, but Daniel continued, his voice steady. But last night, when assassins came, I fought not only for myself. I fought for her. For the queen. Because I saw something real in her, pain, strength, sacrifice. She is not just your ruler. She is a prisoner of fate like me. He turned, looking at the sea of alien faces, at the council, at Torvak's burning eyes. I will not die here as a pawn of your hatred. And I will not run. I choose to live. I choose to stand by her side. The hall erupted in chaos, shouts of fury, cries of shock, whispers of awe. The queen rose from her throne, her emerald eyes shining brighter than ever. She stepped toward Daniel, her voice carrying across the chamber. Then let it be known, by his choice and by prophecy's will, Daniel of Earth shall be my king. The nobles split, some roaring in anger, others bowing in reluctant respect. Torvak spat on the ground, his voice dripping with venom. This will doom us all. But even he could not deny the roar of the crowd outside the palace, the people chanting the human's name, their voices rising like thunder through the city. The queen turned to Daniel. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips, not of triumph, but of relief. You have given me more than survival, she whispered. You have given me hope. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't know if this was the right choice, if fate had tricked him into another kind of cage. But he knew one thing. He would no longer face it alone. That night, the city burned with light and music. Bells rang from the towers and thousands filled the streets. The prophecy had been fulfilled, they said. The queen and her human king would lead them into a new age. But in the shadows, danger still lurked. Torvak and his loyalists whispered, their blades still sharp. The prophecy had not ended. It had only begun. And as Daniel stood beside Seraphina on the balcony, the crowd cheering below, he whispered to himself, I survived. But at what cost? The queen heard him, her voice soft in reply. At the cost of freedom, yes. But perhaps also at the start of something greater. Their hands brushed together, not as strangers forced by fate, but as two warriors who had chosen to fight side by side. And above them, under the twin suns of Zirath, their destiny began,